Hello, Cancer Rising. Welcome to Scopes Unshamed, June 2026. I'm Britten LaRue. I'm excited to get into this with you. This is a big one for you, and a big time overall for you, I feel. Before I dive in, I wanted to make sure that you know that the doors are opening for my Emergence Astrology Pathway at the end of June. June 21 on the solstice through the end of June is the window to get in to my teachings. The Emergence Astrology Pathway is a 1 to 3 year program where I go into my deepest, most refined, most consolidated, most mature, most impactful teachings that I've created. What I found over the years of creating different kinds of spaces is that my students tend to come in and stay for at least 3 years. So I created the Emergence Astrology Pathway so that we could do it in what feels like the most potent and powerful sequence, really moving through the heart of my curriculum over 3 years together. So, well, in 3 years together, should you choose to stay the whole way. Year one in itself is like, whew, your life is going to change because this is not like an astrology classroom. What it is a healing journey. It is astrology as a language of repair, astrology as a language of recovery, astrology as a language of renewal, and astrology as a language of remembering. Your one centers intuition and all things lunar, which for you, Cancer rising, is a big deal because your chart ruler is the moon, we say in astrology. And the whole of year one is my lunar teachings, which I'm famous for. My podcast is Moon to Moon. I've been doing these teachings on the moon since 2019, and I'm now going to be wrapping it around an entire year for a slow, deeply receivable journey into the heart of these teachings. People who started with me in that lunar teaching class in 2019 are still in my community learning with me today because my lunar teachings are so impactful and life changing. So I'm inviting you to go into the caption, click on the link, and just look. Just look and explore. Is this the kind of journey I'm ready to have in my life? Am I interested in something transformational? Would I like to feel different in my body into new ways of being on planet Earth at this time? Because you will change when you come in. Um, I'm saying that up front. They're very catalyzing teachings, and this is where we go deep together. So it'd be my honor to have you if that feels like something you want to give yourself. All right. Let's look at June, Cancer rising. So, as you are probably aware, um, this is a big time for you. You have a lot going on in what we call your 10th house, where you have Aries. So, if you didn't hear my April Scopes Unshamed, I talk a lot about the invitations that you're in with Aries that are really going on for several years here. So, your whole career sector is in a big invitation. And now, the other very, very, like, arguably the most important house in the chart, the first house where you have your rising sign, is also getting a lot of activation this month. So let me talk to you about that because it feels like this is where we should really focus. At the beginning of the month, there's something really, really sweet happening, which is that the two benefic planets, we call them in astrology, Venus and Jupiter, are going to be coming together in your first house. That's June 9th. You already have been having Jupiter through your first house for a year. That's about to end. You've been having Venus going through your first house since the middle of May. And now Venus is catching up to the slower moving Jupiter, and they're going to meet on June 9th. So you may feel pretty great about things in the window around that. Since the first house has so much to do with who am I, me and myself, me on my path, me steering the boat of my life. And when things are moving through the first house, it can sometimes feel actually kind of isolating because this is the part of the chart that has least to do with other people. Like this is about you and yourself and the life that you're living. And so it's sweet when there can be a benefic gathering in the first house when there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the first house coming up here when the sun moves into Cancer. That is all inviting you into like self listening, a lot of self listening, which is, of course, the heart of year one of Emergence Astrology Pathway, because self listening has to do with the moon, like really being there for yourself. So, yeah, just tune in. Like, what is it like to have Venus and Jupiter coming together in your first house? Those two don't come together all that often. So, and they don't, come together all that often in your first house. So, you might just want to collect your own data of like what that time was like for you. Then, as the month continues, we've got the Gemini story unfolding, which for you is a 12th house story. There'll be a new moon on the 14th of the month. That's going to be at 24 degrees of Gemini. If you have anything in your 12th house in Gemini, you might want to look, see what's getting activated in June. But for you being a 12th house space, there may be some clearing that's being invited at this time. 12th house is often where we have a lot of the kind of where we want to take some space for ourselves so that we can tune in and heal and create ritual to hear ourselves. So the new moon is a powerful time to create ritual, to be in listening with yourself and like anything that wants to be released in terms of unshaming, self forgiveness, letting go of story, and inviting in something bigger than you to help you hold it all so that you don't feel so alone. Then the energy is going to be shifting more and more into your first house with the arrival of the sun. And there's also here Mercury. Mercury is moving through Cancer for a long time. You're about to get Mercury retrograde across your first house. So from June 12th till June 29th, Mercury is moving through what we call the retrograde pre-shadow period, where I feel a lot of people get like the most uncomfortable, so to speak, ideas about what this retrograde is going to mean for them in the pre-shadow. It's not true for everybody. Some people feel it in the retrograde itself, and some people feel it in the post-retrograde shadow. So you really have to collect your own information and learn what's true for you. Which phase of the Mercury retrograde are you experiencing kind of like dissonant communication with the world about yourself and where like things just aren't connecting, and that can be very frustrating and uncomfortable, and they're depending on the level of reactivity around miscommunication, urgency around miscommunication, conflict around miscommunication, the more uncomfortable things are. But all of these things are revealing what was already under the surface and is now available for you to see. So it's uncomfortable because you weren't seeing it before, but now you can. So it's a gift because now you can clear. Now you can get clear on what you're supposed to be seeing here. So you may, across the second half of June, be starting to get a lot of like glimmering understanding of what this retrograde is going to be inviting you into. And then on the day of the full moon, which is June 29th in Capricorn, that Mercury is actually stationing like still in the sky, as in unmoving, while it's stationing retrograde. So it's like slow-mo wonk is sometimes how I think it feels. And because you have Capricorn in the seventh house of interpersonal relationships and the moon's lighting that up, You may especially find that the Mercury retrograde material has to do with you and your one-on-one relationships, where you're learning things about how to communicate more clearly with one another. Usually, when we're not clear, it's because we're shaming a truth, we're shaming a desire, we're shaming what we want, we're shaming what we don't want. And it's hard to update when we're shaming, and it's hard to update when we're afraid that the other person is not going to like what we want to say. So the the debris of the Mercury retrograde to me is going to be helping you see these things so that you can move everything into present time and update it. So I think, the key with this is not jumping into reactivity, not jumping into like fixing mode, doing something, pathologizing, but rather like as much as you can. I recommend sitting back and just taking in the data and being like, ah, yes, okay, this is here, this is here, this is here. I'm tracking it, I'm watching it. I'm not going to take any action without clarity. Because often with Mercury retrogrades, what we regret is taking action before we really were clear. And we need more spaciousness to get clear when we're doing retrogrades. So you're going to learn a ton. It's going to ultimately be very helpful. You're going to be like, it was that Mercury retrograde in Cancer in 2026 when I came in to realize about the direction of my life and how I want to live it with the people I'm opposite. But at the time, you're just holding with the data while it accumulates before you have to take any kinds of action. So that would be my guidance. Should you decide to accept it, that's up to you. um, Let me feel into if there's anything else I would want to say to you. Um, well, I think that feels complete for now. I think, yeah, I'm feeling it come to a close. Pitch one last time, Emergence Astrology Pathway. If you want to go real deep with me, we explore all these things together, the depths. I'm inviting you to check out the course page and just find out, is this something that I might want to give to myself, give to my life? All right. Thank you so much. I'll see you in July.